Men who have been sexually assaulted by a woman. What's your story? There was a freshman girl who followed me around everywhere when I was a junior in college. Party at the apartment I share with 3 friends. I get incredibly sloshed and put myself to bed. She shows up really late, sober as can be, and marches right back to my room. My friends thought I made a booty call. I'm just barely conscious. She gets my pants off and blows me until I have an erection. She rides me, while I'm doing absolutely nothing, until I get off. Inside her. She stayed, and the next morning I paid for Plan B with most of what was in my bank account at the time. Rapes you and makes you pay for the Plan B, now that's a ducking monster. She likely told her friends it was either consensual or he raped her. She absolutely told her friends it was consensual. She bragged about it. It sucked because she was the kind of girl that other girls really hated, so there was some social fallout on top of everything else. Now that's just the worst kind of person. And everyone would likely believe her over him. At that point, paying for Plan B is an insurance policy. If she ended up pregnant, this guy would be in for either the responsibility of raising a kid or 18 years of child support, and the fact he was raped would be completely irrelevant to the court system. Of course it's still better than the alternative, but that bitch should have paid for it herself and go to jail and rot in hell. I wouldn't trust her to actually take it. I'd make sure that I saw her take it. If you make her pay for it, this becomes harder because she just say she bought it on her own time and took it without any proof. To be fair, I'd rather pay for the Plan B than trust her to do it on her own. At least I'd have peace of mind knowing she took it. I'm so sorry. I am normally against witch hunting, but this is the one time that I want to destroy someone's life. My supervisor continuously asked me on a date and I declined because I was busy. So she scheduled me off, came over to my house and told me I had no excuse. She paid for everything and I denied sex at the end of the night. I got fired the next day for something unrelated. Nobody believed me and I had to find a new job. Fucking ruthless abuse of power. Slam dunk lawsuit territory there, bud. You need documentation. Without it, unfortunately, it's just a he said she said. But if it was a she said he said situation instead of a he said she said situation, he would end up in jail. Slam dunk lawsuit territory there, but if you can prove it. She expected it to work out like some shitty romance novel and got pissed when reality slapped her in the face. Unnecessarily much? I read that as I declined because I was busty and had a hearty chuckle, but that's ducked. That's horrible, I'm so sorry. I've been grabbed by so many old ladies at work, it's ridiculous. After the first couple it's halfway expected, so you get good at dodging it, but there's no one that'll take a complaint from a guy against an old lady seriously. Profession, me good sir? Likely M's, based on username, and the fact that paramedics deal with a lot of old, and often demented women. It's happened to me when I worked in a care home a fair amount. Stripper. Are not a butoc. I read that as no top but okay, and it still worked in that context. Yeah, I remember when I complained about being repeatedly groped by a female college, my boss just laughed at me. This was in an elementary school. Freshly turned 21, was at the bar with a couple buddies playing pool having a beer. This really haggard looking older woman comes up behind me. I still wore baggy jeans at the time. She slid her hands down the back of my pants and grabbed me ass. I turned my head to have her screech in my ear loudly, "Your mama raised you right, I bet I could show you the time of your life." The entire bar just stared at us. I just laughed it off and she walked away. Buddies thought it was creepy as hell, lucky they don't give me shit for it. If an old man approached a young woman at the bar and stuck his hand down her pants, he'd be arrested. Happened to me. Although he wasn't old, he put his hand straight down the front of my pants into my underwear and pulled me toward him. When I slapped his hand away, he laughed to his friends and called me a ducking bitch. No one did anything. This shit sucks. Behavior like this is just disgusting, no matter who's doing it or who it's getting done to. No one did anything. What kind of crap society? That happens all the time, and I doubt it typically ends in arrest. Maybe more so in recent years, but unless I'm missing some sarcasm, that's pretty naive to say. To be fair though, I've had older men grab my ass and reach under my skirt on multiple occasions when I was younger and at bars, and no one seemed to bother. No arrests made. From first-hand experience, no, he wouldn't. Also, what is the point of making comments like this? I know it's probably not your intention, but these statements come off very flippant. Have this, see? Men have it way worse. Dude vibe to them. Hypothetical add-ons are never helpful. I told a man for whom I was best man that my stepsister raped me. He thought it was appropriate to make jokes about it, specifically about my lack of consent. Changed how I thought of him. These days I'm not chilling with him much. For some reason I imagined her as a hag raven from Skyrim. I had someone grope me when they thought I was drunk and passed out on a bed at university. I whispered daddy, no, and they seemed too guilty to continue after that. Power move. I know this is a serious topic, but this is definitely one of those times where this reaction, https://icons/entries/icons/000/023/987/overcome.jpg is warranted. I've also been mugged, and yeah, you do what you have to do. I ducking LOL'd at this. That's awful that happened, but smart on you. If they think you were sexually assaulted by your father, then that will make them stop 9/10 times. Unless it's your dad. No mommy. A part of me is all like men can be raped and assaulted too. But then there is the other part of me, grinning like a dumb duck at how well worded this is. I'm sorry you were in that position, but Christ, maybe look at doing some stand-up or something. Sometimes I feel almost cruel for having done it and have to remind myself how much worse the thing they were doing was. It didn't traumatize me, thankfully, but that excuses nothing on their end. Whatever they felt hearing those two words was some pretty rapid karma. IQ 100,000. It happened a few times when I was in my party days. I'd get sloshed somewhere, find a nice quiet place to crash out, and wake up with a female friend on top of me trying to get things going. One particularly persistent incident sent me hiding under a pool table because in my drunk mind I was pretty sure there wasn't enough clearance for her to try again. I'm about 95% sure drunk me was right. Okay, that pool table idea is incredible. Drunk you is a genius. I'm sorry that happened to you. Get ready to say WTF. When I was 12, my uncle's wife would have her way with me when he would leave for work. It happened maybe 7 or 8 times. She had seen a glimpse of me on accident while I was changing into swim shorts. I never had an orgasm, but she would go down on me to get me ready and get herself off. She kept asking my guardian's different uncle and aunt if it was okay for me to come stay during the summer. I didn't know how to say I didn't want to go without revealing what was happening. Since my parents passed away when I was 7, I was always afraid of making a mistake and getting kicked out of my house. I was never adopted, so they could collect a check from the state and release me into foster care whenever they were tired of me. I came up with the idea to get one of my cousins to come with me, and when he said he didn't really want it, I revealed to him why. I was hoping if he was with me when I stayed over she wouldn't come get me in the middle of the night. She did anyways, and while we were in her room, my uncle, I never knew had always been watching from outside, runs into the room and says that he saw my cousin peeking through the door. I'm looking at my uncle not sure how to react because I've technically been banging his wife. He went to check and see if my cousin was asleep and then told me to get to bed. A couple days passed and my uncle and I were wrestling after he had a little too much to drink and got really rough with me. He slid my face across the ground with my arms behind my back as revenge for pinning him. This I figured was the perfect excuse to never have to come back to visit. I ran away and called my guardians to come get me and explained what happened. Here's what's really WTF. I was 12 at the time. The secret came out when I was 15 to my entire family. Typical Hispanic family with lots of extended relatives. The way it came out was one of my older cousins heard about it and asked if it was true, and I told him the truth. He said that my aunt used to do the same thing to him, and so he felt compelled to say something to my guardians. Remember, I'm a ward of the state. A full-on investigation took place once my uncle guardian reported the incident to my social worker. I had to tell my story 5 different times. My uncle when he asked for the truth, social worker, the police, my state-appointed therapist, and state-appointed attorney. I was ashamed and humiliated every time. Even worse, most of my family didn't believe me because I didn't report it right away, and since it was after the altercation with my uncle, the excuse I used to not have to visit anymore, my family thought it was some sort of revenge. During the investigation, the police found 100s of pornographic home videos, swinging videos and other kinky smut. My aunt and uncle had their kids taken away for a short period and I took the blame for that as well. By the time I was 16 I had already been kicked out of my relative's house and was in a foster home. Didn't mind much because strangers treated me better than my family, who resented me for what happened. Because of this I shied away from women in junior high and high school. Went through my teenage years concealing my severe anxiety around women. It's really sad when I think back on it. Not because of what I went through. I'm fine, received a scholarship for college and after graduating work for a badass software tech startup. I have a girlfriend and a wonderful Doberman. I live a normal life. I have my down days and my up days like anyone else, I'm sure. I just wonder how many other foster youth in the system are taken advantage of and don't say anything for fear of what might happen. Damn, that's rough, and even more so because your uncle knew what was going on and the sick duck probably got off on watching you with his wife. What I don't understand though is that after a cousin admitted that she had done it to him before, how was it that no one believed you? So how old was your aunt? Did she ever go to jail for it, and how is your relationship with your family now? She did go to jail for a short period and was on probation for a long time. As far as my family believing me, I think they eventually did, but because they're clannish and stick together, resented me for causing duress to my aunt and uncle. I actually moved to the other side of the country to go to college and never really looked back. I only communicate with my twin brother and sisters but don't really have a relationship with anyone else in my family. How can pedophilia and multiple rapes result into a short jail time? And I say that as a woman. People don't think of women as rapists and pedophiles. If a lawyer framed it as something that her husband got her into, the jury would likely have believed it. Women get lighter sentences. It's a part of the whole sexist stereotype thing that feminists call patriarchy. Women are seen as weak, nurturing, safe and passive followers by default. That means we struggle more to be taken seriously in positions of power, but also that aren't held responsible for our wrongdoings to the same degree as men. The whole woman can't be rapists and pedophiles thing is so ducked. How many forms of entertainment show a male student with his female teacher and it's considered a dream scenario? Kelso banged a couple teachers on that 70s show, and the one Jet took to Thanksgiving made sure to tell everyone to cover it up. Lisa Kudrow and Easy A tried to reason that he was of legal age but he was still a student. One Adam Sandler movie at least, but the name escapes me, and he was only like 12 or 13. And Frank and Alice on Friends. It's only shown as assault or pedophilia when it's a male teacher. And those are just the teacher scenarios because that's the first thing that popped into my head as a response to your comment. It's really disturbing. pretty sure they are referring to That's My Boy, which starred Adam Sandler and Andy Samberg, a comedy centered on how Sandler's character was raped by his teacher when he was 12ish and then raised the resulting son. Sandler was not a good parent and is shown to have the mindset of a 12-year up to present time. Samberg's character is now an adult. This was somehow supposed to be a comedy. Because of the widespread f-ked-up belief that men can't be raped. Because of TTY plea deals. How the duck could they resent you? What in the actual duck? Blaming the victim is the most ducked up thing. For the record, it ain't your fault. It is never the victim's fault and should never feel ashamed or humiliated. I'm so sorry this happened to you, but I am so happy you have a good life now. Thanks for sharing your story. I wasn't sure at first but decided to because I know some people wonder if it's as good or bad as it sounds. My aunt was actually attractive and it wasn't forcible, but the way things happened with my family dynamics made it very wrong. You were a child. It was forced. Thank you for sharing your story. I'm happy to hear you're not letting your past keep you from living your present and future. Her actions weren't okay for any reason. I'm sorry that happened to you. Hey mate, it wasn't forced because she completely took advantage of your innocence. It does count as force. It's just more subtle and involves taking advantage of innocence. It was definitely coercive and completely not something you had control of. And it doesn't matter if you liked or didn't like it, it's still her taking advantage of a child. You didn't know that it was damaging for you. That's not your fault, and definitely shouldn't be your shame or guilt to carry. It's all on her. That's how a lot of pedos get away with it. Make the child think it's normal and something they should like. She's disgusting. You don't have to couch it in family dynamics. It was very wrong. It was rape. End of discussion. Other people who tell you it's okay if she's hot and she didn't force you are the real reason male rape isn't taken seriously. Damn. I'm sorry there are TTY people in the world. I hope you've navigated the trauma in a constructive way. WTF indeed. Wow, I'm really sorry about what happened to you. I'm glad that you survived through that and now you have a normal life. I wish the best for you. Holy shit. This is absolutely awful. I hope you've fully accepted that it's not your fault and that you don't blame yourself for any of it. Best wishes to you. Thanks for sharing your story. I think you should know it's very common for survivors to not disclose their abuse for a long time. I think the average length of time is about 20 years. Good on you for enjoying your life today. You deserve it. To be completely honest, had it never come out I would have never told anyone about it. I knew it was wrong and I knew it wasn't my fault. I just wanted to move on with my life and stay away from those people. I'm so sorry that happened to you. I hope the rest of your life is filled with peace and healing. WTF. I was 10 and she was 16. My first cousin, who would invite me over to hang out constantly, went on for years. I didn't know it counted as assault until years later because she was a woman. A lot of my anxiety issues are rooted back to her. She is still one of the most loved family members even after everyone found out the truth, and is why I no longer attend family gatherings to this day. People constantly blame me and say it's my fault our family has tension because I won't be nice to her or forgive her or just try to get along. Edit. Thank you all for your messages. I went through and read them all and I really appreciate your support. In my situation it's hard to find that. I want to let you guys know that I am going to therapy and getting help and things are getting better for me all the time. I'm learning to cope in a healthy way. And if any of you guys ever need to talk to anyone, my messages are always open. I'm sorry your family sucks. I hope they see the light one day. It's crazy when victims are further victimized by the people who should want to protect them. None of this is your fault and they're all scum for trying to make you feel like that. Hope you're doing okay, dude. Probably the most blatant double standard in society. A male teacher sexually assaults a student, lock him up. A female teacher uses that same influence to sexually assault an adolescent boy. He probably liked it and she was just messing around. Why can't you just get along with being raped? Why can't you forgive her for raping you? Seriously, WTF? People. Fucking. Sick. People. Just F4 it's just rape. OMG, your family is awful. Likely cause they don't see it as rape because she's a girl woman. That's that messed up mentality that a lot of people hold. A guy gets sexually assaulted and it's wow dude, you got so lucky. What's the problem? If that happened to a female, all hell would break loose. Mobs would try and find the guy. It's sad, but sexual assault can happen no matter the gender. You know something is wrong in this world when a female raping a man is left on the back burner. None of what happened is your fault and everyone who blames you is an asshole. I'm sorry you had to go through that and I hope you're getting at least some support. This is why I haven't told anyone in my family and just try to work it out alone and with therapy. The person who did this to me is more beloved in the family than I am and I just decided to deal alone than go through all the blame. I guess I'm taking the coward's way out in a sense. Thanks for sharing. I'm a woman, so I am sorry if it's no okay for me to comment. Just couldn't help but want to share when I saw someone so similar. Edit. My abuser was also a woman. Everyone I've had the courage was always surprised by that. You're wholeheartedly welcome to share here, and it's great that you have. I don't really know how to show support, but just remember that you have faced injustice and are a victim of a terrible act. Stay strong. Thank you for saying so. Most times I'm okay, but sometimes my mind puts me back there, and when it does, acknowledging me and opening a space where I can say something does a lot to support me. Thanks to every victim and supporter in here, I think a lot of people can find at least a little peace. My abuser was also a woman. Everyone I've had the courage was always surprised by that. I am sorry to hear this happen to you and that you are unable to speak up. It seems most people downplay the role and percentage of female abusers in society today. I feel that there may be much more than we believe and that the data shows due to a few factors, such as being more likely to go unreported, and the higher trusted access to children. That's ducking up. Sorry that happened to you, and even more sorry that your family just swept it under the rug like it was no big deal. If it was the other way around, they wouldn't be telling her to be nice to you, or forgive you, or any of that nonsense. It's because society thinks guys can't get sexually assaulted. How was it rape if you had a boner? Literally 90% of my boners are because I accidentally touched my DCK or some shitty. There need to be stricter laws for female rapists. While that might be true, there are lots of examples, like, even lots of people that have told similar stories on Reddit in which the families act similar towards male assailants as well. There are plenty of families that rug sweep rape by either gender. Family is more important than anything else, and usually the victim is the one making waves, so the victim is at fault. Don't get me wrong. Females in general are treated as precious little flowers who wouldn't hurt anyone, but to say it got covered up because she was a girl is just bullshit. I stumbled home drunk from a college party and passed out in my dorm room. Woke up to her riding me after she climbed in the window. That's some crazy. Actually happened a second time because I never reported it and the second girl knew I didn't. Stopped my excessive drinking though. This is getting out of hand. Now there are two of them. Somebody close that freaking window. Your dorm roommate shouts angrily after not being able to sleep normally for weeks from the random women climbing in through the window to have sex with you. Climbing in through the window to have sex with rape you. Hello there. General Kenobi. Always two there are. Second girl, there are two? Crazy, you don't know half of it. The guy lived on the 5th floor. Something similar happened to me more than once. I also had to change my lifestyle and remove myself from the bar and party scene BC of it. To this day if I drink too much I become an emotional train wreck BC of it. Removed. Girl I sort of dated for a while. She was prone to getting drunk and angry. One night I had a few too many at a friend's party so I decided to catch a cab home. She followed me into the cab and said she'd crash at mine since hers was too far. I was really pretty drunk by then so figured what's the difference. We got home and I laid down on the bed to pass out but she starts messing with my belt fly trying to open them. I ask what she's doing, and she says she wants sex. I say no, I am too drunk. I just wanna sleep. My head was spinning and I just felt nauseated. She kept taking my pants off and put my penis into her mouth. I told her to stop what she was doing but if I sat up I felt like I was gonna puke and I couldn't really push her away with the state I was in. She got on top of me and pushed my penis inside of her and rode me very aggressively, holding me down. I just kept telling her to stop. I am not interested, I want to sleep. I ended up vomiting after a few minutes because of all the motion and she slapped me and started screaming at me that I was a sick duck. What the hell is wrong with me, etc. She ended up telling heaps of people I vomited on her during sex and I got a lot of jibes teasing about it. It took me a long time to realize that I'd been raped due to the stereotype that men can't be raped, but it was a really ducked up experience. There is only one sick duck in this story and it ain't you, man. Well, technically he was sick too. Medically sick is very different from mentally sick, being a piece of shit. Edit. Replaced mentally sick with a more fitting description. Thank you so much for sharing. Hopefully some guy will see this and realize what's happening to him isn't okay either. Yeah, but then unfortunately nothing is going to happen after that realization. I hate these kind of stereotypes. Oh, I just had a really uncomfortable realization this has happened to me, in a very similar fashion. Well, this has been a fun experience. I hope you are okay, and know there are people you can talk to if you need to or feel like it. Most of those resources are country specific, but there is a small community on Reddit and Get Raped too. It is a safe space to share. I'm kinda happy that you puked on her, lol, your body went into self-defense mode. He was pretty drunk too, probably the main reason, but she still deserved it, along with jail time. I'm sorry that happened to you. What's really shitty is that, in law, at least in the UK, men can't be raped by women as the legal definition is being penetrated with a penis, or something. It's honestly ducking ridiculous. I'm sorry you went through this OP, it's awful and I hope you're able to cope with it, especially in a society that suggests what happened to you is not as bad as if it was the other way round. What's sick is that 95% of the population won't believe rape stories from men. Thanks for sharing. Hope you're doing okay now that you know what she did was wrong and ducked up. I was 20, drinking my face off at a summer party with a bunch of my friends, when a girl who I had a sexual history with and trusted very much at the time decided that I needed a bit more to drink even when things were winding down. Fed me liquor until I was really too ducked up to do anything. Then she helped me into the bathroom because I wasn't feeling so good, where she proceeded to cover my entire face and neck with lipstick marks. Earlier in the night she had been making jokes about trying to get with me, but I'd brushed them off and said sorry, no, not gonna happen. I've got a girlfriend now, that kind of thing, to try and keep her at arm's length. I made the mistake of drinking too much, and as soon as she'd gotten me alone in the bathroom I was pretty well done for. Woke up around 5 AM next to her, both of us naked, in a mutual friend of ours bed, got dressed, ran home and immediately blocked out anything and everything I could about the event. Lived in blissful ignorance of what actually happened to me until 4 or 5 days later when one of my friends brought up that I was most definitely sexually assaulted. Shocked me and hurt me to my core, but I genuinely don't remember anything about what happened after she took me into the bathroom, and a few days later she started saying shit to her friends and people she knew that I'd taken advantage of her while she was drunk that night. The only thing that stopped a mob from trying to beat my ass was a picture my friend had the foresight to snap. Me, very obviously KOD on the bed, pants off, shirt still on, and her, looking right at the camera and covering herself up. Friend did great taking that picture. Yes, that friend earned a lot of friendship points. Homie points. Earned enough bro points to get a promotion. Homo sapien points. I mean, it'd have probably stopped the sexual assault, but that's just me. For real, I think a true friend would have stopped their friend from being raped. Yeah, what's his number? I need this type of friend. Removed. Jenny was a friend of mine. You just want to see the thread ups DCK. I mean, yeah, who wouldn't? While I agree, I am very curious as to why after taking the picture he didn't intervene and try to stop the assault. Crazy and sad that if it wasn't for that one friend his life could have been potentially ruined. What a heads up friend to take that picture. Probably saw her intentions ahead of time and thought it out. I'm assuming this is the same friend who brought it to ARP's attention they were assaulted. No, they didn't help then, but yes, they did help. Not saying it was right to wait, especially a few days, but I'm thinking they wanted to find out if it was actually mutual before taking action. I mean, do you wanna be the guy that pushes a half-naked girl to the ground at the party to stop an assault? If another dude saw that, they would assume the friend is the assaulter. As such, probably a smart move, as much as it sucks that it wasn't prevented. I hate how this is a thing. As a woman, I would have absolutely no qualms taking this woman into another room or getting her the duck away from him. But I know if my boyfriend did that he'd be labeled something horrible, and I loathe how this is a thing in our society. Double standards. Sadly they exist everywhere. Fair point. My hatred of them has not decreased. Pretty much what happened. The wait was just so I didn't have to deal with a work week knowing about what happened, and considering my employment situation at the time, I was more grateful than anything raffle. But not help him? I agree it was lucky, but still pretty ducked up TBH. The woman in the situation will always have the benefit of the doubt, and it's important to have evidence. It's important to have evidence in general. The girl was looking at the camera and covering herself up. It's pretty obvious that she took the picture right after intervening, which would get her to stop. Whoa, I'm so sorry. Why didn't the friend stop this from happening as well? While it's cool they took the picture, they knew what was going to happen. I doubt he could do anything without her doing something to him. It's a very hard line to walk, intervening as a man. Trying to help your friend try and keep everything as simple and clean cut as you can is difficult, and I absolutely don't blame him for not starting a riot then and there. What he did for me has on its own not only saved me from potential lawsuits, but he also saved me a lot of confusion and all that BS that comes along with being blackout drunk when you were raped. If there was no evidence, the worst thing about it is that people always tend to believe the girl's side of the story. I shared my story, which is kind of similar. How often do people refuse to believe you because if you're passed out she couldn't have gotten it up unless you wanted to sleep with her? How did your GF take all of this? Did she believe you? Her and I aren't together anymore, for unrelated reasons, but at the time, she was nothing but supportive and helpful. When I was a kid and one doctor jerked me off to check up on my health, it never bothered me until I got a new doctor. I hate doctors now. The fuck? Just checking his glands. In 8th grade my friend told me that, according to his brother, The doctor jerks you off once you get to month grade to make sure everything is working. Come 9th grade I didn't get jerked off, so I figured it was cap, but now I'm thinking his brother might have got molested. No cap, that's some weird tea. Well, if it happened, yeah, I just don't know if he was winding his brother up or not. WHT. When he was a kid, one doctor jerked him off to check up on his health. IT never bothered him until he got a new doctor. He hates doctors now. Thanks for clarification. You got to admit, he clarified the duck out of that tea. I read your comment in Nejan's voice. If only everyone was as good with words as you. I have words, the best words. Can you type a little bit louder please? When he was a kid, one doctor jerked him off to check up on his health. IT never bothered him until he got a new doctor. He hates doctors now. Thank you, I can hear it now. I can't afford medals, so here is a follower. My doctor story wasn't as bad. I found out I had scoliosis when I was in middle school. The first doctor made me take all of my clothes off so he could look at my back. I remember myself naked, bending over with his hands on my hips, him standing behind me. My parents were in the room so nothing was actually happening, but I felt weird about it. Next doctor was like, why would you need to take your pants off for me to see your back? I already had trust issues. This just added doctors to the list of untrustworthy. The spine defiantly goes all the way down and you could have hip and leg issues. If you're skinny it's very easy to see. Damn defiant spines. I am very sorry it made you feel uncomfortable, but it is a clinical test commonly done to evaluate scoliosis. https://www.physio-pedia.com/adam_s_forward_bend_test. The very first line in your link specifically states the test is done after removing a t-shirt, and includes nothing about pants. Comma naked, which part of naked do you not understand? It's not normal to be naked during that test. I think the main issue was the naked part. Can't tell if you're being sarcastic, but no, you don't need to take off your pants. A scoliosis can be congenital, meaning the problem is in your back, but it can also be a result of one longer or shorter leg. To exclude this, the doctor has to look at your legs and back as a whole. He or she also has to look at the orientation of your pelvis. Usually, you can keep on your underwear though, but it isn't necessarily wrong to undress to your underwear in these examinations. Creepiness all depends on context thought, since looking from the doctor shouldn't involve touching hips asses of the patient. Aren't you going to jerk me off? This doctor's office sucks. Bad Yelp review coming your way. Didn't get jerked off. Would not visit again. Dear OP, PLZ accepts our apologies for making jokes. I want you to know this is obviously an unacceptable situation you went through, but please excuse us as we help laugh the pain away. It's all in good fun. 3. I doubt this will be as bad as some of the incoming stories, but I'll share anyway. I wasn't assaulted, but I was in a situation that made me a little uncomfortable. I went to a birthday party of a girl I went to high school with, so naturally plenty of from high school would be there. This was about 4 years after graduating. One girl in attendance was someone I used to have a bit of a crush on. So being a little more confident than I was in high school, I start talking to her and we're hitting it off. I excuse myself to go to the bathroom, and while I'm waiting I notice she has followed me. She walks into the bathroom with me and we start making out. Being a little drunk, I'm pretty into it. We're all over each other, so we get away from the party and take a walk down the road to a park where we end up having sex. We walk back to the party and rejoin the group. I'm trying to act all cool as if nothing happened, but she has her arms around me, which is fine, but it kind of felt like we were a couple in a weird way. This is where it starts getting a little weird. I'm standing in a circle with my friends and people from high school that I haven't seen in years. She starts rubbing my penis in front of everyone. I take her hand away from my crotch, but she immediately tries to grab me again. Eventually she just puts her entire hand down my pants and tries to give me a hand job. Again, right in front of everybody who can clearly see what is going on and all look very uncomfortable. We're both pretty drunk, but I have enough sense to try and save her from really embarrassing herself, so I remove the both of us from the backyard, where the majority of the party is, and take her to the front yard. She keeps trying to entice me to have sex with her again right there on the front yard by taking her shirt off and exposing her breasts to me while there are people entering and exiting the party, many of which are parents. Every time I get her shirt back on, she just tries to show me her breasts again. They were amazing, but that just wasn't the time to be showing them off. She keeps saying, "Let's duck. Come on, let's duck," but I said no over and over again, but she wasn't having any of it. If it were me doing even half the shit she was doing, I would have probably been arrested. Edit. I say my story isn't as bad because, as I've read on this thread so far, a lot of men have had experiences that will likely stay with them for the rest of their lives. What happened to me sucks, I agree, but it hasn't lingered with me emotionally. I'm fine. If it were me, I probably would have been arrested. Not probably, definitely. Or beaten up. Either way, I'd end up on the ground with a knee to the back of my head. You could still get arrested because it sounds like she was drunk. It pretty much sounds like he had no way out. So was he. Sometimes it doesn't matter, as ducked as that is, it just doesn't matter. Drunk woman publicly rubbing on a man, taking her clothes off and begging for sex equals cringe and pathetic. Drunk man publicly rubbing on a woman, taking off his clothes and begging for sex equals creepy and assault. Damn, that's ducked. The main reason people, unconsciously, see it in other ways is because in most cases it is assumed that the male can always physically stop the female. Still not making it okay, of course, but to be completely fair, it has me less worried when I see a woman getting naked on top of a man than the other way around. I was about 6 years old, living in Colorado. My sister had a sleepover at our house, with 2 of her friends. I woke up before everyone like I always did. My morning ritual was sneaking 2 Oreos out of the cookie jar and then watching mid-90s MTV on the floor with a blanket. My sister's 2 friends wake up shortly after. Both of them are about 3 or 4 years older than me. All I really remember is them trying to have sex with me, too scared and confused to make them stop. We were in the living room, under the blanket while this all happened. The only reason it came to a stop was the sound of my father clearing his throat. Fellow Colorado here, but damn, so did your dad know what was happening? Absolutely. Oshti, so what did he say or do, and what happened to those girls? Nothing was ever spoken of, besides the clearing of the throat. As simple, I see you, I know what's happening, stop. Everything happened so fast. There's a small chance his drunk ass just thought we were roughhousing. He was drunk that early in the morning but was still looking out for you. That seems nice. The fact that 10-year-olds were seeking sexual experiences at all means they were probably molested themselves or exposed to graphic pornography. I'm sorry you went through that though. I honestly don't know how or if it affected me or not. I'm just telling my story. They weren't teens. They were about 9 or 10. While that might be true, they could also simply have been curious, like, I remember do the show me yours, I'll show you mine at an age of 8 or 9 with a girl from my neighborhood. Of course, she was pretty much the same age as me, and she was just as curious and interested as I was, and neither I nor she was sexually abused. Well, regarding her at least that I know of. Playing doctor and other bodily curiosity is perfectly normal in preteen childhood. It generally doesn't go beyond simple exploration though, so trying to have sex during that age, especially knowing what they're supposed to do to have sex, is often a sign of prior abuse. So they were 9-10 and they tried to rape you? Well, WTF. I won't call it rape, I was involved in some capacity, had no idea what was what. I have trouble with this too because I was molested or assaulted when I was very young. It's hard. Don't let it own you. You're so much bigger than that. You were 6. It doesn't matter if you were interested or even if you enjoyed it. You were a child who was suddenly put in an adult circumstance. You did not do anything wrong. This is the most damning incest and molestation trope, that because you might have found it exciting, that it's somehow partly your fault. When you are a child, and someone in a position of authority, by age, relation, profession, assaults you, it is never your fault. How you react is how you react to the situation, but it is not one you put yourself in. Mine might not be as traumatic as some in this thread, but here it is. Typical teenager talking a big game. Gets girl into room in college. After some lackluster foreplay she pulls my shorts off to see what she's working with. I decide I don't want sex. Maybe just head is okay. This is the first woman I've been with. I'm terrified. She leaves for a minute, comes back with 2 friends. The 2 friends held me down while she ducked me. I was 18. I wasn't intimate with another woman for almost a decade. Well, that sounds pretty traumatic, if it affected you for such a long time. Hope you're doing alright. That was such a ducked up thing done to you. I'm relatively well adjusted and in a healthy sexual relationship with a woman who I adore. She know about my past and hasn't wavered in her love. I'm one of the lucky ones. Geez, what kind of twisted duck helps their friend rape someone? That wasn't rape. Geez, we were all playing and talking shitty, just a random college gig. You guys need to chill these people, probably. That sounds pretty goddamn traumatic to me. I hope you've talked to a professional about it. I'm so sorry. The thing that strikes me about that is it's almost fantasy fetish material, if you had given consent. Since you didn't, it's nightmare fuel. But because it's such a classic male fantasy, 3 women at once, it would be even harder than usual to get people to take it seriously. Sorry you had that experience, man. So glad you've got a healthy relationship now. Good luck with your partner. Please tell me you told the police. Mine might not be as traumatic as some in this thread, but here it is. I was 18. I wasn't intimate with another woman for almost a decade. Sounds like it was pretty traumatic. Switch the she s for he s and it sounds just like a horror story that would fall out of a frat house scandal. Sounds plenty traumatic to me, man. What happened to you wasn't small. You are being in no way, shape or form dramatic. Saw another comment and it seems like you're doing okay now. Anyone who would minimize what happened to you can duck right off. My cousin was visiting from the UK. I was 5 or 6 at the time. All I remember is the feeling of confusion, guilt, pleasure and shame as she is on top of me. Unfortunately she was not my only abuser and I repressed the memories for a long time. But when they came back to the surface I recognized the exact same feelings from my other rapes. I'm so sorry all of that happened to you. I hope you're getting support and healing. That is so horrible. Please get help with therapy or something. I'm so sorry. I hope you've been able to get help. There are support groups for survivors of incest and molestation. I'm in one, and it saved my life. If you ever wanna talk, or want details about the groups, please PM me. I had a boss in hospitality who would slap my backside at any opportunity when I passed her. I asked the other staff, majority female, if this was common and they stated they'd only seen her do it to me. When she find out I had asked the other staff about her, she doubled down. Now she would grope or literally pull me into her for a forced hug where she would also grope me. As I was only 15 at the time, I didn't really have the capacity to know what to do in that situation, so I just froze up out of fear most times. Then I just stopped going to work without notice, so she appeared at my house screaming like a banshee that I was a piece of shit etc. I then got to witness one of the greatest things ever. My mom, who is a very timid woman most of the time, beat the MFT out of that lady. Total fatality style beat down. I haven't seen her since, but I heard the other girls at the business all quit when they heard why I left and she had to close the business. TLDR boss molested B daily as a teen. Mom beat the shit out of her. She lost her business. Here I was reading this thinking about how there's been a few incidents of similarity reported where it's usually something small at first and the account of what happened sounds about normal for this type of thing in the workplace. As I was only 15 at the time. Hold up, that's not just slightly illegal, that's very illegal. Country town, so mob justice, police justice. She was pretty much run out of town for this and for being just generally batshit crazy. I guess we can chalk that up for the rare time small town mob justice did right. I say mob, but it was just stuff like dirty looks, people calling her out in public for being a bad guy, DCKS, cashier deliberately going slow to piss her off, that sort of small town justice, nothing pitchforky. That might actually be more evil, just slowly make her life unbearable. Good. Holy duck, that's doubly not okay. I'm so sorry about that. Cool, you got to see how fiercely you mom loves you. If anyone ever did that to my son, I'd beat the duck out of them too. My wife would probably stalk them and cut their brake lines or something like that. Did your mom know about the sexual assault? She did know. She didn't even say anything. She just had this bitch look on her face and stormed straight out, beat her badly, then came inside and calmly called the local police station and later applied for a restraining order on my behalf. Goddamn, your mom is an OG. I respect the hell out of that. You don't duck with Mama Bear. Unless you got a death wish, that is. Damn, she's a G. Your mom is a straight up badass. Your mom is a badass. I hope she gets the best Mother's Day gifts every year. Not op, but I fear for his life should he not, lol. My respect to your mother because she did what needed to be done, and I hope you're doing well now. That lady is roadside trash and your mum is awesome. Both beat the shit out of that scum and called the police on her. That's dedication. Your mum is a warrior. Thank you for sharing your story. Also, she deserved your mom's punches. I know that my story won't be as extreme as some of the others in here, but still it's important that it's told. I was 21 years old in the military stationed overseas. A girl that I had previous relations with and two of her friends asked me to give them a ride to the town so they could go to some clubs and enjoy the nightlife, so of course I figured why not. They had been pre-gaming pretty hard and saw it as an opportunity to have someone fill my gas tank. So one of her friends who I was not acquainted with at all takes front seat while she goes into the back with the other friend, and as soon as I started my car the passengers starts shouting tons of inappropriate comments about how the vibrations from the bass in the car and the sound of the exhaust is making her wet. I ignore the comments but they keep coming. She starts asking if it turns me on knowing that she is wet in my car and tried to grab my hand to feel. Several times she tried to reach and grab my penis over and under my pants, and it got so bad she put her head in my lap at a point in the drive. I tried to push her away as much as I could, but driving on poorly lit roads and needing to focus on not slamming into a tree took priority. We finally get to the town where I'm dropping them off and she tried to grab my face and demanded that I kissed her as her way of thanking me. Obviously wasn't happening and I left them and refused to pick them back up later in the night. It took a while for me to realize what happened, and it wasn't until I spoke to a psychologist in my work center who explained it fantastically, and it was reverse the genders in the situation. Would it be okay if a man did that to a woman? And it dawned on me and it made me really depressed for a while, and it hurt many relationships I've had. It's essentially made sexual contact unenjoyable and it makes me feel used and objectified. Kinda strange. Thanks for taking the time to read my story. I know I'm a poor historian, so if you'd like clarification feel free to ask. This is not as extreme. If it happened to you, it's still a problem. Don't brush it off because others had it worse than you. Waitress at a bar wouldn't leave me alone and then grabbed my package. I was in shock and didn't know what to say. Harassment and stealing your Amazon delivery? The nerve. If this was posted under a woman's comment, you would have been downvoted and harassed. The one time a post really needed the serious tag. Not a guy you commented to, but I'm also a male sex assault survivor, and I was told by a therapist that I joke so much because I'm uncomfortable with what happened, and the events after gave me the inability to take anything seriously. Edit. People also just make jokes when they're in uncomfortable situations to lessen the hardship. Crazy ex. She didn't want me to leave her, so she forced my DCK inside her and wanted me to come at her to make her pregnant. Supposedly I'd still be with her if she got preg. That's scary. Sorry to hear that. Thank you for sharing your story. I'm hoping that men sharing these awful experiences will save someone who maybe doesn't understand that what's happening to him is not okay. Basically rape, like she forced you to have sex with her, and if you didn't consent then it's rape nonetheless. But I hope you're feeling better now. Basically rape. Basically reverse rape. I've never heard of reverse rape as a term. What is that like? You're no longer raping me. Reverses positions, I'm raping you. Through ages 7 to 13 I was molested ritualistically by a bitch I still know. She had a smelly vagina and big labia that really turned me off. I enjoyed physical contact as I was adopted out of a Russian orphanage and had a pretty bad attachment disorder problem and a huge problem socializing IRL. This meant I was an extremely lonely, literally making no friends until I started drinking alcohol. She would caress my inner thighs and I really enjoyed that for a time. She used to threaten to get me in trouble with my parents if I refused. It started with her waking me up very early in the morning and spreading my butt cheeks and patting them. It grew into truth or dare games that became sexual almost immediately. I first touched her bits when I was 7, and first inserted myself into her sometime later in the same year. By the age of 13 it became just blatant sex with a condom. I had to eat her out and it was vile, especially seeing the little traces of toilet paper in the folds of her labia, which I inevitably would try to wipe away but would be made to eat. One time she accompanied my family on holiday overseas and I thought I came in her in a hotel spa. It was in the gym and nobody was around. When we got back home I carried a Stanley knife with me for just over a year in case I needed to kill myself if she became pregnant. I have a phobia of kissing now. I have a phobia of sexual contact. I have a phobia of any physical contact. I have tactile hallucinations of being touched fairly regularly that creep me the duck out. Everything seems sexual to me, from eating to touching anything. Even opening a door in front of someone I still. 15 years after the last encounter, I try to do it non-sexually. It might sound absurd but it's an ever-present problem in my life. It means every time I eat I have to do it alone. It means when I'm in public, even though I'm clearly an adult, I still feel like I'm getting eye-banged by women all the time. What is funny at least is that I got bullied a lot in school and often people would tell me how I would always be a virgin. I was probably not a virgin long before any of those boys weren't, but I couldn't say anything. Fuck her. Dude. Fucking shitty. I'm so sorry. Unless you've already tried, please get some help. I'm very sorry this happened to you, but you can get better. Hopefully you will find some peace. If you haven't already, you should get some therapy. It sounds like you're carrying some serious PTSD. That's a hell of a horrible ride. Have you seen a therapist? You can't change the past, but you can shape your future. You don't have to live with constant intrusive thoughts. There's a number of therapy methods that may help you work through some of it. Let me know if you want or need help finding someone who can help. Really bad what happened with you. I hope you are okay. Whoa, you said you still know her. How did it finally stop? Did you ever tell anyone or confront her or anything? And are you okay? Your phobias sound unmanageable. Have you found anything that helps at least somewhat? I hope you find peace at some point. That sounds like a horrendous existence. I'm so sorry. My story is different, but please know that I understand. I would love to offer you some comfort, but kind words over the internet are not enough for this kind of hurt. But there are support groups run by and dedicated to survivors of childhood sexual assault and ritual abuse, and I would encourage you to see if you can find more healing there. PM me if you want to talk or want details. Stayed over at a friend's house about an hour from my place. He really wanted a threesome with his, then living with him, girlfriend duck buddy. The two of them decided I would be the third person, but neither asked or told me about it. Once the other people left his place, she starts getting real aggressive with me, grabbing my leg and talking dirty. I didn't see her that way, and there was the issue of her being my friend's GF. She starts talking about how I must be gay if I don't want to have sex with her, but that's okay, she is willing to share her man with me, so just hurry up and take my pants off already. I shoved her hard enough to knock her over the sofa we were next to, and she got the idea. Spent the whole night terrified she would try something again, but nothing else happened that night. The next day I needed a ride to a bus station. My ride back home got in a fight with his GF and left me there. The two of them said they had errands to run in town anyway, so they drove me. Their errands ended up being dragging me into a sex shop and making me go in with them as they bought toys, then heavily suggesting I go back with them rather than the bus station. Thankfully they listened when I made it clear how angry I was about the entire situation, and dropped me off at the bus stop without another word. That's so disrespectful and evil. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Seriously, ducked. Nice job on standing your ground. Was drunk as tea in my dorm. A girl I fooled around with came in. I told her repeatedly I couldn't. It was a bad idea, as I was sick and felt nauseous. She didn't let it dissuade her. I couldn't get her off me. I never reported it because hey, they barely took chicks getting assaulted seriously. No way in hell a drunk guy on campus was assaulted. She wasn't raw. That's horrible, I'm sorry. Many years ago I was asked by my sil, my wife's sister, to give her a ride from the bar to back home. It was 2 AM and we were all awake at the house lounging in pajamas, sweats, etc and playing games, so I volunteered, hugged and kissed my wife goodbye and said I'd be right back. It was a very small town. I get to the bar, go inside and look for her, meet up with her and we leave uneventfully. In my car she's talking about her then boyfriend being a total DCK, when all of a sudden as I'm driving, she reaches down into my sweats, pulls my DCK out and starts trying to blow me. I'm like, what the duck are you doing? It's winter, icy roads, and I'm shocked she did this. I'm obviously getting harder and pulling off to the side of the road to stop her. When I did, I equated to what she did as rape, and she flipped out. I promised I wouldn't tell and she did end up apologizing to me afterwards. Moral of the story is men can get raped and sexually assaulted by women. Just because a DCK gets hard doesn't mean it's consenting. I was violated by my sister-in-law. Told my wife and her response was she figured her sister would eventually try something with me. Wife was happy with my response and never told anybody what happened. She still can't trust her sister. IDKY people don't believe men when we say that erections are not always voluntary. Hell, there's men who can't get them when they do want them. I ducking hate the double standard. It's literally victim blaming. It's called arousal non-concordance, where our physiological response doesn't necessarily line up with our psychological response, and it happens in the reverse too, where you can be really turned on but your body isn't responding. All that to say that physical response does not equal consent in any way. Comma sits weird, gets tired, randomly yep, checks out. correct, this happens, unfortunately, with women as well during a violent rape. Some women orgasm. You can well imagine the implications of something like that happening on the long-term well-being of a person. And sometimes it gets hard for no reason and I'm like, what is it, boy? You see something? Emo, the whole getting an erection is giving consent is the same as she dressed like she wanted it, and both are equally disgusting and wrong. Just because the DCK gets hard doesn't mean it's consenting. Like, girls get wet too when you rape them. From what I've read etc, so I mean if I shoved it inside her and she got wet, it's the same thing as if she got on me and I got hard. Exactly, it's like saying, oh well, your heart started beating faster when I did that, so you're obviously excited about this. No, that's not how autonomous bodily functions work. What disgusts me the most are the people asking why do you complain. For some reason they still believe that men should always appreciate sexual acts, and that they'd always be wanted. Not me, but my partner. His girlfriend before me would force or pressure him into going down on her, including while she was on her period. He never got anything in return. No sex and no BJs or HJs. She would lie and guilt him into pleasuring her, saying things like, my stomach hurts if I'm horny and nothing happens, or you're my boyfriend, you have to please me or else I'll leave you. She'd also manipulate and abuse him emotionally and occasionally physically, so he didn't feel like he could talk to anyone about it, especially since he's man, and felt like nobody would believe him or take him seriously, since there's this stupid idea that you're man, you probably wanted to anyway, or men can't be abused. Eventually he said enough was enough and left her. She tried to turn his friends against him and tried ruining his reputation, which sadly worked, so he lost a lot more friends. It took me a while to convince him to get used to the idea that he doesn't have to do anything he doesn't want to, and that he can definitely say no to anything at any time, and that men have a right to their bodies and what they do with them just as much as anyone else. Sexual assault and rape is still incredibly wrong even when done to a man. To all men out there who have been hurt this way, I am so sorry for what those monsters did to you, and I hope you're better now. And to any man out there who is going through this sort of thing, I hope you find support and courage to stand up for yourselves. I know this sort of thing is incredibly hard to deal with, and I hope all victims are taken seriously and treated with the respect and love that they deserve, no matter who they are. And always remember that your body is your decision. My girlfriend has a really similar situation. She feels bad when I get horny and she isn't in the mood, because of past experiences with assholes forcing her to do stuff she didn't want. But it gets better. Just keep telling him. He can be happy to have such a great GF. I was in a similar situation as your girlfriend a few years ago, and it took a while to mostly get past the trauma. Since my BF and I have been in very similar situations, like being emotionally and sexually abused, we both understand the effects and the pain we both went through. Though his situation was more recent than mine, so the trauma is more fresh, and I have to be more gentle with him than he has to be with me. We both sometimes randomly fall back into old habits of just giving into each other, but we both understand that it's not either of our fault. The fact that we've been through similar things has brought us together more and made us understand each other more, and I'm glad that we're here to support each other and to help each other heal the wounds that our horrible exes created. I am a straight male who was sexually harassed by a gay man at work. This was in an office environment. I would constantly have my ass slapped because I looked too good not to. In my work pants, sexual comments were made daily, and I had a video sent to me on Facebook that appeared to be normal but instead turned out to be pornographic at the end. I asked the person to stop, however they laughed it off. They were very popular around the office and everyone liked him. I told my boss, who also laughed it off and said it was funny. My boss was female. I told her she wouldn't have the same reaction if it was me constantly slapping one of the other girls' asses, but she said that was different. I no longer work in that office as I was promoted and moved to another department. Please tell me you reported both the co-worker and your former boss, especially the boss. It's unexcusable not to take complaints like that serious. They can actually get in very serious trouble. Fear breaking labor laws by not taking complaints by workers into account, and I heard labor laws are very strict. Cases where a female is harassed are sadly taken more seriously than if a man is, even in the court of law. Number Like, completely ignoring someone's complaint could also get you in trouble. As a gay dude, sorry this guy was such a piece of shit towards you. I was roofied by a Brazilian girl at Oktoberfest. We met and she offered to buy me a beer, which I thought was awesome, because I'd never had a woman offer to buy me a drink. Of course, being a man, I did not even consider the risk of being drugged. Oh boy was that a mistake. She returns with said beer. I had nothing else to drink at this point. I begin to drink it, and I don't even remember finishing it. The next thing I know, 2 security dudes are literally dragging me by the arms out of the beer garden. I can't even hold my head up and I don't know where I am or what's going on. I cannot speak and my tongue is literally hanging out of my mouth. Guess who suddenly appears? The girl. She said that I was with her, so they drag me to her car, mumbling about how they hate dealing with drunk frat boys. I am unable to speak or offer any sort of resistance the whole time. The next thing I remember is being tied to her bed and then taken for a ride. I think I vomited at some point. She just cleaned it up and kept going. This felt like it went on for hours, but whatever drug I had been given really ducked my brain up. The only other time I can remember feeling like that was when I woke up from anesthesia after having dental surgery. I woke up with my hands still tied to the bedposts, and the ducked up part is that she then acted like this was a totally normal and fun situation. I was genuinely scared of what she might do if I did not play along, so I did, dying a little inside, in the process, until I could get away. My phone and other personal effects were gone, but luckily I had my wallet, so I was able to pay for a taxi to take me what turned out to be 30 miles to my home. I don't know why she felt like she had to drug me. I had no idea what was going on and thought I was going to die. Genuinely one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. And no, I didn't report it, because who's going to believe me? I just swallowed the experience and moved on. Couldn't you get tested for the drug afterwards? I'm not trying to blame you for not reporting it, I'm just curious. Most stuff doesn't stay in the body too long, no clue about whatever was used here but fair chance it'd be gone by the time anything could be done about it. That is completely terrifying. Oh my god. 2 times. Once there was a girl in college who grabbed both sides of my face and attempted to tongue me. The second was at a concert, where I felt this tiny hand grab my ass cheek and really give it a good squeeze. I turned around to see WTF just happened and a 50-something-year-old woman smoking a huge ass joint smiled at me, lit up like a jack-o'-lantern. EWW. I was at a bar and this woman I knew from college grabbed my DCK while I was dancing with my girlfriend. Then the next day she messaged me on Facebook and I told her my girlfriend was pissed she did that. She said sorry and that she gets handsy when she is drunk. Fast forward 3 years and she is on the front lines of the Me Too movement demonizing men and their terrible ways. I wanted to post a screenshot of our conversation to one of her Me Too posts but I didn't want to be a DCK. It's not being a DCK, you know she should do the same to you in his heartbeat. I highly encourage you to do it. People deserve to know she's a fraud and someone that has no boundaries. Please do it, post it, just like how they want men to be held accountable for assault, so should women. While in a college apartment a roommate had a bunch of friends from his hometown over for the weekend. On Saturday I stayed in so I could study, did that for a while and moved on to just drinking and playing video games while they all went out to the bar. I was pretty hammered by about 1 AM. One of the girls came back early, walked into my room completely naked, and proceeded to get on top of me before I could even put my controller down. I woke up the next morning and a friend I was playing video games texted me asking what happened because I was saying no and stop it while my headset was still on. It was sexual assault because I definitely did not consent. Plus she has herpes so I could have been infected for life. But no one really cared because she was attractive and from out of town. She avoided me the couple of times I saw her in town after that happened. In high school, I was 14 and she was 13. Although I was quite small for my age and gender and she was over 6 foot, she knew I didn't like it, but every day she'd hug me against my will, grope at me, pin me down and touch wherever she wanted, slap my ass, even at times try, or successfully, steal my clothes, blah blah. Basically just every bit of sexual harassment short of rape, in public. 2. This continued for years until I eventually graduated. The school knew. Other students knew. Teachers knew. But it was never considered an issue. Response from the teachers was just "oh how cute." Response from students was either laughing or just saying "dude she likes you, just go out with her, not fun." Glad to be no longer going to school. And yes, she was of course never punished. I was in a club when I was 19. Spotted a girl nearby sobbing to one of the bouncers she lost her phone. Being a sympathetic chap, I had a quick scan of the dance floor and saw an iPhone that had been kicked into the corner. Bingo. Picked it up and went and presented it to her. She was very happy, so then grabbed me and put her tongue in my mouth. Now I know that's normally a positive way to reward someone, but I wasn't attracted to her, so for me it wasn't very pleasant. When I stopped her and said "that's alright, I just wanted you to get your phone back," she got pissed off, slapped me across the face and walked off. There's been a few other things that are arguably more severe, but that's the one that pissed me off the most. XD. Every time I read this my brain just gets smaller. Whoa, what a bitch. Also, imagine the scenes if a guy had done the same to her. Some girls think they're too good to be denied. Shared a bed with a girl from high school when we somehow managed to have a hotel party, since there were not a lot of beds. She was decent, but I never tagged her as a girl I would have sex with. More about her personality. She draped herself all over me the entire night, and I just chalked it up to her doing it in her sleep, so I allowed it. I was drinking before this and eventually dozed off. Then in the early morning hours I was awoken by her kissing my neck and grabbing my bone. As I couldn't help that, it just happens when stimulated, and I was half asleep. Mind you, there were 4 other people in this room, 2 on the other bed, 2 on the floor, which really put me off. First I just said not here to try and be nice, but that is how I felt. It was such an inappropriate time and place to start up. I was confused a bit. We knew each other, were really just acquaintances in my mind, but were at the same parties often. But I never really engaged with her that much, and when we did, it just quick banter that in retrospect could have been interpreted as being flirtatious, but I didn't realize that then. Part of the reason I was comfortable sharing a bed with her, I felt like there was no chance of funny business. Then I just said stop right now quietly as I was trying to not wake everyone up as she continued her hand job. Then she went down on me and I stiff-armed her. Now wide awake, went and grabbed my keys and left. I was not in the mood to have sex or get dome in a room full of people we knew. Honestly though, if it was just her and I may have been more receptive, but there is a time and a place for everything, and I was just not having it, and she didn't seem to get that part, so just kept making advances through my resistance. You don't even need to give a reason for your refusal of consent. No means no. Silence means no. Anything other than a verbal or non-verbal yes means no. I'm sorry that happened to you. Good job making the right decision. As they say, mind over matter. When I was 22, I went through a phase when I tried online dating for a while. I met this one girl who I met up and connected with over drinks and dinner. The typical meetup story? Wrong. After 40 minutes into dinner I felt unwell. She insisted that she takes me to her place. I was in no state to argue. We get to her place and it was just a blur. I vaguely remember my clothes coming off and her forcing me to go down on her, and I think she blew me. I woke up the next morning and then said something like, "Did we have sex?" She said yes we did. Twice. I very quickly dressed and bolted. Fortunately I was able to Uber home. I am convinced I was date raped. I've never told anyone about it. I'm also convinced, if you choose to share this with someone you know, I hope they respond in a way that's worthy of your trust. A little over a decade ago I drove to Chicago with my girlfriend. We went out to dinner and they offered us a magnum of wine at Buca di Beppo despite the fact that we were 19. I've looked 30 since then, so it's not terribly surprising. On the way home we're driving down LSD I think, Then 55 and she drunkenly gets very adamant about giving me roadhead. I say no, I'm underage. I had some wine with dinner, and we're in arguably one of the biggest trafficked areas in the US. For a bit she agrees to chill out, and I hope she'll pass out. A bit later she gets aggressive again and then tries to climb into the back to start drinking more from the half bottle that we corked and took with us as greedy teenagers who weren't typically supplied. She got mad when I scolded her and told her that this was dangerous and started trying to hold onto the steering wheel. She got the idea to threaten to run us off the road or into another car if she couldn't blow me, so I relented, scared to death, and enjoying nothing about the experience, just hoping I could stay hard enough through the trauma to not anger her into jerking the steering wheel. I didn't get a blowjob until I was 29 years old because I would immediately go into fight or flight. But at the time we stayed together because at that time I didn't understand that men could be sexually assaulted too. And hey, she was just drunk. It's fine. Move on. I remember joking about it to my friends and them being horrified. First time I remember thinking something unforgivable might have happened. I'm so sorry that happened to you. I hope you've been able to heal from the incident and or go to therapy to help deal with it. I had a woman roommate for a bit. I came home super drunk one night and couldn't get in the front door. She got me in, took me to my room, undressed me, gave me a blowjob until hard, put a condom on me and then had sex with me. I was nearly blackout drunk. I most definitely didn't consent. Woke up hours later with my pants off and a condom still on. I have brief memories of it. We had had sex a couple times before so I guess she thought it was okay. I don't feel angry or anything about it, but it definitely fits the description of rape. This story is the best worst I've read in this thread so far. Yeah, you had sex before and she, thank God, used a condom, but she didn't bother asking for consent and went after you while intoxicated. You may have given her consent to have sex one time but that doesn't mean she can come anytime for a round two when you don't want it. Definitely rape. I went to high school in an area that had an extremely small liberal arts college in it. A few of my friends from high school attended the college. I spent quite a bit of time hanging out there in the first year or two out of high school. One night around the time I was 18, I was there and sort of bantering with one of the co-eds when she made a pass at me. She'd been drinking, and I was a pretty shy sort of person at that point, and she'd already gotten herself a reputation for her behavior. Despite the fact that she was relatively physically attractive, I really wasn't feeling it, so I demurred and eventually drove back home to my mother's house where I was living. About 5 minutes after I got home, my back door swung open and the co-ed came storming into my house, screaming that no one was allowed to turn her down. She'd followed me home to figure out where I lived. At the time, I wasn't even remotely sure what to do, but the last thing I needed was my mother coming downstairs to her drunken co-ed screaming that we had to be going at it. So I did my best to calm her down, hustled her to my bedroom, and went through the motions of hooking up for the 15 minutes it took her to pass out. The next morning I hustled her out of the house as early and quietly as possible. My only definite memory of the incident 20 years later is the rancid smell of peach wine on her breath and her saying something like the rules of engagement for tonight, there will be no fluid exchange as she took my penis in her mouth. There wasn't any. It wasn't a flattering experience. Dude, your mom would have dealt with that harpy in a way only mothers can. I'm sorry that happened to you. I've been groped on a few occasions, but the one that still makes me fume was many years ago. I was 14 and just walking around Dayton, visiting with family. My cousin and I went off to explore and passed by a group of girls that were definitely older than we were by 2 or 3 years. As we passed the last girl I feel a hand squeeze my butt. I couldn't muster anything but flip the bird and keep walking. I was already out of my element, a couple thousand miles away from home for the first time, and it was maddening and embarrassing. Jenny McCarthy violates Bieber on stage by force and jokes about it. https://youtube/syggmw_sn7k. Then went bitching during the Me Too movement that Steven Seagal has made a pass at her and that he was a pervert. Jenny McCarthy, isn't she the same witch that supports anti-vaxxers? Jenny Kid Killer McCarthy sucks. Shocker. Not as bad as some of the other guys here, but still assault. This drunk girl at a club really wanted D, but no guy wanted to give her the D. She wasn't that ugly, bit overweight but had a pretty face. Problem was she was ducking, annoying, loud, rude and just an overall asshole. So she started groping about half the guys in the bar. When you accidentally made eye contact with her, she immediately tried to kiss you. After pushing away for grabbing my crotch again, I went to her friends to ask if they could take her home. Nobody did anything, just because it was a girl doing that to guys. Yeah, that's like felony assault at that point, but not a big deal because girl, there is a pretty serious double standard. Work trip with colleagues. After our first night of heavy drinking at a local pub, went into my hotel room to sleep, dead drunk. A colleague asked hotel staff to open my room, and since they saw us together they assumed we were a couple. To my shock, she actually ducked me and I couldn't remember much. She apologized, but I was not feeling okay about all this. 3 months later, she tells me she's pregnant. Had to be honest to my wife about all this and she didn't believe me. I even went as far as opening a case of rape with the police to prove my innocence. She admitted everything through court. 8 months pregnant, facing jail time. Now I'm pleading with prosecutors to drop the case. Wife wants a divorce if that happens. Wait, so your wife wants to divorce you if your rapist gets jail time? It sounds like maybe wife wants a divorce if he gets the case dropped. I think she may still be distrustful of him in that it might not have been rape. OP, please let me know if this isn't the case. Also, if it's not the case and wife is genuinely pissed you let yourself get raped or some shitty, leave her too. That's no way to treat someone you claim to love. Story makes zero sense. Wife doesn't want an 8-month pregnant woman to go to jail while she's pregnant. I divorce the wife, but this kind of behavior isn't unheard of. Sound more like wife wants a divorce if he drops the case to save colleague. At least that's how I read it. I'm so sorry this happened to you. My boyfriend was raped by an employee. He also told his wife and his wife also didn't believe him and actually dragged him to therapy for months to try to figure out how he could let the rape happen. Therapist told him privately a few times that this marriage isn't going to work and he needs to go to therapy alone to work through what he went through without his wife victim blaming him. Victim blaming is such bullshit and I'm very sorry and I feel for you. I hope you find happiness and peace past all this soon. 3. I'm so sorry. I truly hope it works out for you. Pretty tame, but a girl in the club grabbed my ass a few times and I said I didn't like her cause it made me uncomfortable. She said I need to stop being a ducking PSSY and deal with it. It can't be assault if it's a girl touching a guy. Edit. Fixed a typo. I was part of this bigger bullying project in my school. I am a big boy, weighty, I have moobs and people around me thought it would be fun to grope me, and since I was a boy, it was okay. Started out just being my roommate, but it just evolved until I was sexually harassed and assaulted daily by guys and girls alike. All because I was a guy with moobs. It stopped after the first guy was expelled for sexual harassment. One guy thought it was a joke or a lie because you can't sexually harass guys, so he decided to push it even further. Police ended up called on him. He had one hell of a reality check as he spent the rest of his childhood in prison. He was 15. I don't know if you count it as the worst aggressor and the punished were both guys, but prior to the guy getting expelled from school, the girls were some of the worst. Anyways, in the end we all had to attend a sexual harassment assault assembly, even me the victim, where the boys were essentially demonized by the visiting speaker until she found out that a guy was the victim of sexual harassments from both guys and girls. She had no idea how to continue from there. I too had moobs and they too were groped, but I adopted the moob for boob policy for women and I figure dudes were just ducking with me cause that's what we dudes do, so I was cool. That being said, it was definitely harassment and that's not cool. How did she learn that you were the victim? Well, she asked those who had been victimized by sexual harassment to raise their hand. Already a retarded idea. I know she wasn't very good. I was the only one who raised my hand. She had just been told that they had an incident with sexual harassment among the students, and wasn't given many details because the school was trying to save face. But she had no clue how to respond after that, because it was just a guy. It was apparently an entirely new concept for her that a chubby teenage boy had faced sexual harassment, and afterwards she asked me and a few other students what actually had happened here. Once she got the whole story, she hugged me, which I wasn't on board with since she had just demonized the boys. Had I been in a better place emotionally and more mature, I likely would have lectured her, but honestly I just wanted to get out of there, so I told her to shove her apology up her ass and left. Wish I had told her not to demonize boys, but rather to demonize sexual harassment and assault as a whole. However it comes from, but yeah, I was too angry to do that. Nothing serious, but I've had my ass grabbed a few times. For the most part, men don't feel threatened by it. Can't say the same for a woman. So typically, it's not as big of a deal. It's still never okay. Each time a woman has grabbed me, I've swatted her hand away and scared the living shit out of her. I'm 6'5 inches, so when I tell them to get the duck out, they get the duck out. I was fit for a while in my early 20s. Went out regularly, learned that I wasn't unattractive and got some confidence, or at least enough to fake it. The amount of times I was slapped on the butt. I was once talking to a friend and a group of girls walked past and each one of them in quick succession slapped my ass. Now I'm not perfect, and I've been guilty of touching a butt at the club when I was 18. Felt horrible about it, but I can't imagine doing that as a group activity. Humans in groups get bold. Visualizing that made me chuckle and then realize if it was a line of guys slapping a girl's ass, I would not laugh. OMG, I'm sexist TT, but honestly though, people defend that behavior by saying it's a ducking compliment, but it's hella degrading. This has happened to me ironically in an LGBT club. The main time security kicked them out and phoned the police. They did that go quite a few times. More than just pinching someone's ass, full on groping guys. It's the worst I've seen it, but this seems to be a common occurrence at gay clubs. Creepy fat girl stalker in my dorm would wait around for me at the elevators. I think she had learned my class schedule. One night, we ran into each other. I was coming back from a party, and I guess she was too. She pushed me up against the wall of the elevator and started groping me. She was way too fat for me to easily get her off of me, and I didn't want to punch her or anything because there were no cameras or witnesses. So in a he said she said situation, I'd lose. Fortunately, I was able to get out from under her after about 30 seconds, walked straight to my dorm room, and locked the door behind me. I've been grabbed by girls, and some dudes, before and after, but never like that. I'm just glad I wasn't completely hammered or something that night. Swamp donkey. I was dating a girl who suffered from a psychiatric disorder. One night, after a really hard day at work, I told her that I wanted to go to bed without having sex. I woke up at about 1 AM to find her trying to cut off her own labia. She asked me to help. I begged her to stop. I don't remember much of what happened next, but I remember being inside her, and wanting desperately to pull away. She grabbed my testicles and squeezed so hard that I bruised. She also tried to castrate me with a knife, leaving a pretty gnarly gash on my scrotum. I remember being inside her, and feeling every muscle of my body retract. The utter revulsion, the smell of blood and the shame. Wanting so desperately to not be there. Please don't make me do this, I'll f***ing kill you. I'll tell the cops who raped me and I'll f***ing kill you. Nobody will come for you. I could take this, my testicles. If I wanted. Her tone of voice was almost sweet consolatory, like she was acting out of love. I had a flaccid orgasm, which is apparently common with femme sexual assaults. I slept in the next room that night. Something that always bothered me was how she came over and put a blanket on my shoulders. She told me how she was sorry that she had to do that and that sometimes love hurts, but you go on because you love someone. The next day, I went to work, and she was taken inpatient at a psych place. I only saw her once after that. I'm ashamed to say that I apologized. I didn't seek help for a long time. Ro, I really hope you are okay now. Not me, but my dad was repeatedly molested by his older sister and her loser friends when he was a kid. They legit treated him like their toy whenever she had to watch him. The way that bitch went on about how he's my Barbie bruised the ear with an Emmy-seeking performance at the nurse's station in the hospital to try and get through despite not being allowed in while he was on his deathbed was disgusting. Dated this girl for about a month. I had surgery on my testicle a few days after we met, so no sex for about a month. One night I got completely hammered and passed out. I woke up with her on top and her trying to get a limp noodle in a sloppy taco. Haven't seen her since. That's the best euphemism I've heard so far. IDK if this counts, but when I was 17 I was sleeping with a 29-year-old for a few weeks. When I wanted to stop she flipped out and grabbed me over my pants and said it was hers, and I told her to duck off and knocked her hand away, and she turned around, lifted her shirt and showed me the rug burn from the previous night on her back and said that I had marked her and I could get in trouble. Fucking crazy bitch. Didn't talk to her for years, then she walked by when I was with some friends and looked like she saw a ghost. I wasn't assaulted per se. I was the male in my department and worked with older females. One of them asked me if I'd ever been to a strip club and I said no, it wasn't my thing. She proceeded to give me a lap dance and felt hugely uncomfortable. I never said anything. I was new and didn't want to piss off a bunch of women. My wife and I visited a swinger club, and we were sitting on some couches when a woman decided to hand out some lap dances. There are rules in these kinds of clubs about asking before touching, but it only seems to apply to men. When she got around to me, she knelt on the floor in front of me and started running her hands up and down my legs and rubbing her breasts on me. I really don't like to be touched by anyone but my wife, and she was making me feel very uncomfortable. I tried to gently push her away, and she was like, "Hey, ask before touching." Exactly, I said. I didn't feel like it was assault, but it was weird how I ended up feeling like the creep for trying to stop her. Dude, that is assault, and is totally not okay. Hope you're doing alright. Sorry you had to go through that. My now girlfriend pressured me into sex on our second date. Got naked and climbed on top after I said I didn't want it, and again several times that night. I didn't want to risk losing her, so went along. The next time she complained about some bad experiences in her string of one-night stands. I am rather traditional, and said not to get ahead of myself as I didn't mean much to her. It really ducked me up. I had pre-existing mental issues. Somehow she stood by me when I had a breakdown, lost my job, and we came out a happy couple, but I am still resentful and anxious about the way it started. A rather light story. My sympathies to guys that actually got assaulted. I'm going to get downvoted for this, but you should get out of that relationship. Even if she's changed, that resentment is going to eat a hole through you. There are other people out there that will love and respect you. You're absolutely right. He was raped and is still suffering from it. She's his abuser, but he doesn't recognize her as that. Unfortunately, it's kind of common with abuse victims, regardless of gender. Having been there myself, it's hard to recognize abuse when you're in the middle of it. From a feminist perspective, this is definitely sexual assault, if not downright rapey. Also from a feminist perspective, the first time he said he didn't want to should have been the end of it unless and until he vocally and emphatically changed his mind. Edit. It never ceases to amaze me how often as a feminist, "I support you" is met with "How dare you, sir." That's rape. It's easy to pass it off as a special circumstance because it happened to you, but you're smart enough to know by definition what that was. So she raped you. You said no and she did it anyway. That's rape. Then she manipulated you to stay with her. Sorry for bad English. My first language is Italian. Mamma mia. I was like 10 and she was 13 and we were neighbors. Where I live there's literally nothing and she was the only child I could play with. We played together pretty much all days. One day she called me in this tree house. It wasn't a house on a tree, but 3 trees that somehow fused themselves into a house looking shape, with a lot of space inside of it, and you can't see a thing from outside. She then started making me strange requests like show me her penis or how it feels if I rub there. I wasn't understanding, but she was my friend and I was like, okay, let's do this. I took everything like a game. Also, that don't tell anyone about this. It's our secret part. Time passed. Sex ed at school and I started understanding. Talked with her. Lot of lies and psychological things. Still be her sex toy. After 2 or 3 years my parents discovered the truth. I was forbidden to see her again and sent to a psychologist. Now I have a porn addiction and difficulties to relate with people, in particular with girls, and it's all her fault for the docs. May someone can think she was giving you hand jobs, blow jobs and let you touch her tits. This is a blessing, man. Nope, it isn't. Trust me. My first girlfriend was crazy and way more advanced than me sexually. She always pressured me into doing things I was not comfortable with. She wanted a hand at her throat, then she wanted more and more pressure applied. Then she wanted to be tied down, then she wanted it so bad it left bruises. Then I got mocked for not being man enough for her. And what was I going to do when she wanted knife play, or me to kidnap her, or to make her blackout? I didn't know any of this was not okay and I was scared to break up with her because she had mental issues and I knew it would be messy and she wasn't above reporting me for rape or beating her since she'd flat out told me she falsely reported exes of hers in the past. Luckily, life gave me a mulligan and she was forced to move out of state when the people she was living with kicked her out when she got accused of stealing and coming onto the husband of the pair to make it all go away. The best feeling in my life was driving her to the Greyhound bus stop and sending her north to some other couple who agreed to host her. I felt like I put a bomb on that bus and let it blow up in someone else's life. Was drunk as tea with people from work and we all ended up back at my apartment. No attraction towards her whatsoever and was avoiding her all night. I kicked everyone out to go to bed and had someone give her a ride home because that was her excuse to stay. Woke up to her on top, no condom, and proceeded to kick her out again. She had placed a small statue in the building doorway and had walked back. Wound up with strep throat that caused a gout. Got it. Psoriasis outbreak across my entire body. 0/10 would not recommend. Molested in forehead to have sex at 7 by 2 neighboring sisters. They were 13 and 16. Happened freck since our family were friends and lived close by. Now at 29 I am finally addressing what happened and I now understand why I have PTSD and isolate myself to games and not meeting people and why my life is full of anxiety and depression. Wish the stigma against men wasn't so bad. Google 1inch 6 men. It can help to read some of the information and get help about male rape surviving. Reading all this, it makes me so mad all of you can't be taken seriously. Abuse is abuse, regardless of the gender. That's simple. Christ. Not just that men aren't taken seriously by others, they also have a hard time taking themselves their situation seriously. So many comments start out with not sure if this counts or later say didn't realize at the time. It's very sad. Raped by a nanny when I was 5 for a few months, then by another when I was 8. Lost my virginity at 12 to an adult woman. Dated a 32-year-old when I was 16. She was my high school teacher. I've also had a couple women threaten to accuse me of rape when I decided I didn't want to sleep with them anymore. And my daughter was born from my ex who tried to save our moribund relationship by lying about taking her pill and getting pregnant on purpose. So, yeah, a lifetime of experience with this. I don't know if it's sexual assault or sexual harassment, but here's my story. One day in school our art teachers were preparing something and took us down to the hall so we could watch the Goonies. I sadly had girls all around me and the one on my right started saying how she loved me and wanted to kiss me. She leaned into a kiss but I didn't want to kiss so I told her to stop. Later on in the film I felt a hand on each one of my legs, one was her and one was the girl on the left of me. I told them both to stop and the girl on the left did. The girl on my right started moving her hand up my leg and said someone's gonna get an erection. She grabbed my DCK. Luckily I didn't get hard, and I told her to stop again and she did, but not for long. About 10 minutes later she grabbed my hand and put it on her leg so I pulled my hand back. She said, "Don't you wanna feel my legs?" I said no and luckily it sort of ended there. For the next 2 weeks her and her friend would always come up to me calling me sexy, and eventually they completely stopped. I have only told my closest friends and I am too scared to tell anyone else. Girl I never really talked to much one day just came and sat next to me while I was talking to someone else and suddenly took my hand. I softly pulled it free and carried on. 2 minutes later she did the same. Didn't want to make a scene or anything, so let it be. She did it maybe one more time and gave up. I was on ignore mode, but felt really uncomfortable. Some days later teacher isn't in the class, so it's a bit of a chill out session going on. People sitting around on tables chatting. A different girl comes up and says some kids wanna ask me something outside. I mosey on over and as I walk out there's a circle of maybe 6-7 girls. I've just unwittingly taken center stage. I wonder for a moment WTF is going on when one handhold girl grabs both my arms, pulls me in, and French kisses me hard. It happened so quick it took a moment to process before I could regroup and push her away. She stood there smiling at me. The entire group were now laughing. I scowled at her, furious that she'd take something like that and turn it into a show, and walked away. I figured a dislike that was all the attention she deserved for this, and was clearly trying to elicit a response, good or bad, but she never tried it again. I guess it is hard in these situations to feel like it's assault if they're just girls and you're much stronger guy, but it is, in a technical sense. I chose to think of it as clueless girls also just trying to figure this romance shit out, just like I was to a huge degree, and gave her a mental pass for the incident. It seemed like she learned something from it. Addendum: if you're a young woman and want to try to attract the attention of a guy, trust me, most of us would be super grateful for an honest chat instead of throwing yourself at us. So many people are downvoting this thread. This is so sad. Men can be victims too. It's Reddit 1. Some believe the stories are fake too. The question has probably been asked before. I've never seen it prior. 3. Because things like this are often considered misogynistic or are cesspools that breed hate. Crazy ain't it? Simple rule. If it's bad when you switch the people, then it's bad for either one. The misogynistic thing I wouldn't believe if I hadn't actually seen multiple things like this shot down multiple times with people actually mentioning that as their reason. I really just wanted some awareness thrown out there. The question has probably been asked before. I've never seen it prior. This question has been asked a bunch of times already, but I think it still needs to keep being asked on a regular basis. It's important. Not everyone gets a chance to share their stories. I apologize if it offends anyone. I don't know if this is assault or not. I did not want to have sex with this girl though. It didn't even cross my mind because apparently she had a boyfriend. And on top of that I did not consider her my kind of girl. I'll tell you what happened and you tell me. At only 21 but with already 3 years of experience, I was the man in charge of production and storage in a small soap warehouse. By in charge I mean I had to do most of the job. Anyway, at one point in time one of my helpers was a girl. She was around 25 yo. We had been co-workers for a couple months by then and I always tried to treat her fair and well. We didn't knew each other beyond that of what we talked about at the job, and I consider myself an introvert on top of that, so you'd guess that by mostly listening instead of talking. I knew much more about her than she did about me. That day I had stood up for her to the owner because she was feeling sick and the guy won't let her go or he'd put her on unpaid leave for a week. After some friction he agreed to let her go and come back next day. I usually worked alone until very late. It was about 11 PM and I was doing some paperwork to end the day at my messy desk in the back of the building. The door was ringing and when I went to check it was her. She had come back to pick her bag that she had forgot. We ended up engaging in casual conversation while I finished my papers and asked if she wanted a ride home. But just out of nowhere she jumped on my lap and kissed me, grinding her body against mine. She then proceeded to try and take off my clothes. When I put resistance, she started to take hers off. I kept refusing to kiss her. She continued trying to turn me on for a while, but to be honest I was more scared than anything. So eventually she stopped and told me, "Your girlfriend is very lucky." I didn't had one though. Not that she knew. Remember, she didn't know me well. I just brushed it off and said, "I'm sorry. I just don't know what to do. Let's pretend it didn't happen." She and I left for the day and continued our daily jobs as usual for a couple months. By then I was already growing tired of my boss, so I did quit when a couple of other guys who I had made friends left and never saw her again. Oh yeah, before I finish I must also say that my boss, even he had tried to make an advance on me once. WTF. I only remember now that I unearthed the other memory, lol. But that was less interesting and intense than the story above. I was 17 drinking at my older brother's house. He has a girl over that he was messing with and she seemed to have a thing for me. I wasn't attracted to her but she was still flirting pretty heavy. He asked me to go to his room to get his CD collection and pick something to listen to. I went in his room, found his CDs, then heard the door close behind me. I turned around to see the girl that had been flirting with me. She was a big girl, bigger than me and easily overpowered my tiny 160-pound self. She pushed me on the bed and pulled my pants down. She was super aggressive all the while I was telling her I just wanted to go back out to the party and to stop. She pulled out my member and put it in her mouth. It got hard. She assumed I was enjoying it because of that, but I was 17 and the wind could make it stand up. I was still struggling to get away and finally started screaming at her. She got up and I rushed out to the hallway, told my brother and he just laughed. He told everyone the next day that I hooked up with her and my dad and other brothers gave me shit for it for years. Later on, when I was old enough to drink legally, I ran into her and a group of her friends at a bar. They started verbally assaulting me and telling me I was wrong for letting her go down on me because she was drunk. I still don't know how to feel about it 12 years later. One time at a house party I went to the bathroom to take a leak. As I walked through the door, some girl that had been eyeing me the entire night came in and shut the door behind her. She then proceeded to lock the door and give me this "what are you gonna do about it" look. I pretended it was all a big misunderstanding and said something along the lines of "oh, was it your turn? I'm sorry," and left the bathroom. Never felt threatened though. Sholv sat down and tried to force a shti. I don't know if this is technically sexual assault, but my sister used to lock me in the bathroom with her when I was about 6 years old. She would show me how she inserted tampons. As time moved on, she started using the bathroom visits to hurt me. She poured cleaning products in my eyes once. Like I said, I don't know if this is sexual assault. I think she did molest me when I was younger, but I can't be sure what she did as I was too young and I've possibly blanked it out a bit. These days I'm doing okay. I suffered from terrible depression through my 20s. Now I have a really good partner and a beautiful daughter. I couldn't be happier. The only issue I have is that I never told my parents. I think they suspect bad stuff happened to me. I've had 2 attempts at killing myself, but fortunately I was drunk the last time and survived due to a really bad attempt at hanging myself. This happened just under 3 weeks ago. I was walking home from school late at night and this older woman who was clearly drunk grabbed me, pinned me up against the wall and started kissing my cheeks, mumbling nonsense. I asked her to stop because 1, I wasn't into it at all, and 2, I had an exam the next morning. Instead of stopping, she started grinding on me, and then grabbing my hands and forcing them onto her chest, insisting that it wasn't sexual. She did the racist slant eye thing to me, because I'm Asian, and then started punching me because she wanted me to teach her Tai Chi. I was able to escape when she lost her beer bottle cap and had to search the street for it, and I was able to run away. I felt trapped because I wasn't sure if I'd be the one in trouble if I shoved or hit her in defense. I basically had a yandere at the age of 14. She was 19, and she eventually had her way with me after she was able to follow me into a back alley. I go through there to take a shortcut to my bus stop, and we were alone and it was 6:00 in the morning, so she was pretty confident about it, and now I don't walk down that alley anymore. If you're wondering, no, I didn't report it because I was a popular kid and I didn't want people knowing that I had been raped, because at that age I really cared about my reputation. When I was a child, my female teachers spanked me bare butt routinely and touched my butt in private areas. Jesus Christ, that's terrible. I didn't think it was a big deal at the time, but I was at a bar with a friend watching a live band. My buddy stepped away to the bathroom, and while I was intently focused on the show, an older woman of probably mid-40s, I was 24 at the time, snuck up behind me and grabbed my junk, pretty aggressively. While it was in her hands, she whispered in my ear, "Where's this going tonight?" All I could say was, "Home, and to bed," and removed her hand. She seemed pretty perturbed. I was in the Air Force at the time, and we constantly received briefing after briefing about sexual assault and how female on male assault is statistically unreported 90% of the time. It didn't really become apparent that I was sexually assaulted until many years later during another briefing. Just an example of how many men might just brush it off or not take it as seriously as they should. I don't know if it's assault, but I was delivering cat furniture, yes, to this old lady's apartment when she locked the door behind her and started asking me if I wanted anything over and over, stood between me and the door, eventually wrapped her arms and a leg around me and pulled me really close. I was a lot bigger than her, so I just said no thank you and sort of gently pushed her off. I didn't hurt her, and went out the door. She did give me a $10 tip though, so I got that going for me. I am highly saddened and disappointed that these comments are of men who simply lived with the experience and didn't report their rapists to the police. Don't deny yourself justice and allow a rapist to get away with their actions, just because they are women. Even if you don't think you would be believed, report it anyway. This girl upped me one time after I told her number 20 times like I could have pushed her off, but I didn't know what to do tbh, and I can't talk to anyone about it because they always say, "Why are you complaining at free PSSY?" That's 100% assault, and I'm really sorry that happened to you. That's not assault, it's straight up rape. UHH, because it wasn't consensual, fam. Not physically reacting is a natural reaction to sexual assault. It's not just fight or flight, the body can also freeze if it feels that's the best way to keep you safe. And even if you feel like that's not what happened with you, just know that you shouldn't have had to push her away. You shouldn't have had to repeatedly tell her no. She should have made sure you were completely comfortable. I'm so sorry you went through this, and I hope you find a place to reach out where you can find some peace. The same thing happened to me, but I don't really know how to feel. She was very attractive, but she was my best friend's ex. It just felt wrong. I didn't want to do it, but she wore me down after resisting her advances all night. I don't wanna call it rape because I feel it undermines real victims of rape. A horrible, horrible crime. A crime that ruins lives and scars some people for life. Some never recover. I don't feel like my life was ruined. I don't feel bad or guilty. I don't have long-term psychological damage. I'm actually pretty neutral. It's just something that happened to me, like taking my driving test or doing my taxes. It's just a memory. Never been sexually assaulted by women, but another guy when I was 10. Does that count? I am so sorry that happened to you. You are a victim. If you would like to share your story to spread awareness, please do. Not as bad as others here. Had mono at the time. Got a bad case of the fatigue that went with it. Got lingering issues with that, but it's another story. Some days I could fall asleep right in the middle of conversations. My GF's dad at the time thought it was a great show of disrespect. Again, another story. Well, what happened to me was me going to bed early cause I was tired af, and my GF riding me while I was sleeping. I never knew. Found out after we broke up when she mentioned to her BFF how much she'll miss her human dildo. Female friends saw no issue in it. Male friends wished their GFs did the same. Technically, still rape. Fun fact, she rode me without condom, while we always had consensual sex with condom. Got cornered by my photography teacher in the dark room as a freshman. I had stayed late to make up assignments I missed while hospitalized. She insisted that there was a way to make up the missed work without having to do the assignment. I could just do her. I froze up and didn't fight back, but I can still remember the smell of her breath and the detergent she used. She must have taken my silence as implicit compliance. I found out after graduation that she was fired and her husband divorced her after he came to school to help her pack up for the year and found pictures of her getting spit roasted by 2 football players. She no longer lives in the United States. I was 29. She must have been 50. I was lifting a tray of shots at the bar to bring to friends. She walked up, said may I randomly, and grabbed my package before I knew what was happening. All the women at the table laughed when I told them what happened. One acknowledged that it was inappropriate, but still laughed. Not by a woman but by a man. When we traveled to Barcelona with school, I had a gay friend to share a room. He was a really good friend of mine and we get along normal. I am not gay BTW. One night there I woke up with him trying to take off my shorts while he was naked. I was shocked and was really mad. He apologized and said he was horny and that he finds me handsome. I'm like, okay, but can you not do that? I am definitely not okay with that. He was pushing on me to give me a blowjob. OFC, I reacted angry. He continues to grab me and tries to restrain me. I managed to punch him in the face to release myself, and at that point I ran out of the room with the keycard and my pack of cigarettes. Ran to the outside emergency stairs. He didn't see me go there. I sat down and smoked a cigarette to calm myself down, still with only wearing shorts. I went back to the room. I saw he was walking in the hall, closed the door and didn't let him in again. In the morning at around 5 AM I threw all his stuff in the hall, and reported what happened to the hotel manager, and he was relocated to another room. I didn't say anything to the teachers or my other classmates. Till this day nobody knows what happened apart from him and me. After the trip I never talked to him again. I was at a party when I was 18. Had never had sex before. Got stupid drunk and high for the first time. Most of that night is a blur to be honest, but this one girl, they had been crying since she just had been dumped, and I remember I tried to calm her down. She started kissing me. I pulled back, but was so drunk I could barely walk. She managed to lead me into a bedroom upstairs. Can't really remember that much of the night, except that she was naked, and she was on top. I woke up with my clothes on, just my pants pulled down so my duck was out. She was laying naked next to me. The horror I felt was awful. That was my first time, and the whole school found out, and made a lot of fun of me. I was crying in the shower for days, but still had no idea that this was a rape until years later. Was in a relationship with her. Felt it was unhealthy, so I broke up with her, but we would still do casual hookups from time to time. I wasn't a fan of it though. We shared a lot of mutual friends since we went to the same Hebrew school. Over the course of the year she started to try to separate me from the friends we shared. This basically unfolded into a position where she forced me to have sex with her, or else she would make all of our friends turn on to me. Eventually I stood up for myself and said I wasn't okay with her using my body to meet her desires. Then she did exactly what I expected and I was ostracized by my Hebrew school community. Went to the police, they did nothing. Went to the synagogue's staff and they at first did nothing. After some time however, they said if I didn't feel safe around the person who sexually assaulted me then I should not come to Hebrew school at all. I had this one girl in my health and social class who would not stop grabbing my ass or otherwise groping me whenever she got the opportunity. It made me feel so awkward and gross, but she would always walk away laughing. It happened in full view of other students and teachers, and everyone either laughed with her or ignored it. The kicker though is a few months after this started happening, another guy grabbed her ass in a different class and she completely chewed him out, screaming about how horrible and wrong it is to do that to a person, and all the same people who laughed at me were cheering her on and talking about how great she was for weeks. I can't remember the guy's punishment, but he got one and it was pretty serious. I'm only 15, but when I was in pre-K there were high school age girls who volunteered there, and they would get me and some of the other boys into the playhouse and play without gear almost once a week, but we never knew it was a bad thing. More recently in the 7th grade I was walking home from school and my friend that was in high school at the time asked me to help carry some stuff from the school to her house, and since I had hit puberty in the 5th grade I was the biggest guy in the neighborhood at that time, so I of course agreed because that's how I was raised. But once I got into her house, her and her older sister locked me in a room and said they'd tell people I raped her if I told anyone what was going to happen to me. and by that point I was scared shitless, so I just lay there while they had their way with me, and it became common until I convinced my mom to move towns because they would use it to blackmail me for years. I was ducking around with a girl I trusted very much. I have a foot fetish and she indulged it from time to time. So when she begged me to try out some of her kinks, I agreed. She said she wanted to try out bondage and I reluctantly agreed. So I let her bond my wrists and legs. Well, once I was tied up, there really wasn't anything I could do to fight back. That night was horrible. I was beat, raped, humiliated, and so much more I don't feel comfortable discussing on a Reddit thread. It went on until I passed out and woke up the next morning. There was no sign of her and I pondered if it was just a nightmare, until I saw the marks from struggling against the ropes. It gave me major PTSD and I basically had decided that I was never going to get sexual with a girl again. But my current girlfriend has been slowly working with me to help me out. I hopefully will be able to get into bed with her without having a panic attack. No one will probably see this in the seal comments, but for those who do, this felt good to finally get out there. I am finally done letting her haunt me and ruining my future love endeavors. My mother married my stepfather when I was 6 years old. My eventual stepsister came to live with us a year prior to that. She was 12. She would take me in the closet and touch me, make me touch her almost daily. I never told anyone because my mom seemed happy and I didn't want to mess it up. I began faking diarrhea, stomach aches and other illnesses in order to get away from her, and just as a way of acting out. This went on until my mother and stepfather's death a year later. Today, I wish I had said something when it was happening and feel responsible for my mother's death, because I was afraid exposing my abuser could harm her marriage. Bigger girls would get handsy at the bar every now and then. I had an ex that wouldn't get off me when I asked her to without a condom on and had to fake an orgasm to get her off. Same ex. After I broke up with her, jumped and wrapped her legs around me until, while I was saying stop, and would get off me unless I hit her or had sex with her. Given the police probably wouldn't believe me if I told them a cute girl with a black eye tried to rape me, I just starfished and took it. I didn't want to sleep with her because she had a boyfriend, and was trying to better myself. After my ex told me she cheated on me with my best friend and another friend of mine after. For those asking yourselves why I didn't leave the girl, she led me through an 8-week pregnancy scare. She completely ruined my trust in women for a while. I have a lot of good women in my life, thankfully, but I pretty much nuked my last relationship with the girl I wanted to marry because of the leftover trust problems and relatively new attachment anxiety. I've been going through a lot of therapy and trying to fix myself. I kinda fell apart mentally for a few years. It changed my sexual interests a lot too, and I even developed a porn addiction. For a while before my ex I thought about prostitution cause I just wanted to satisfy my urges on an instinctual level. Never did it go. Oh, and a few weeks ago I found out my ex's sister was trashing me at a place I do my work in, saying that I was in a toxic to a bunch of the cute chicks that kinda dig me. I haven't even spoken to my ex in like 5 years, and somehow her sister, that hates my ex's guts, trashed me. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. One time this girl I was with put my DCK in her before I even put a condom on. Another time I told her I was too tired for sex and woke up to her trying to put myself in her. And another time she took off the condom and put me back in her, which is apparently called stealthing. To make matters worse, I was having a mental breakdown and confided in one of my co-workers what happened, and their response was, "You shouldn't have told me that, Lamia." Pretty sure that co-worker has been going around telling people I had unprotected sex when in reality I think that qualifies as assault. So what she is doing is practically outing me as an assault victim. Like holy shit, my perception as to why people don't report rape sexual assault has greatly evolved. I mean, the implication you might have caught an STD is scary enough. And it's usually a case of he said she said so, unless if there is evidence of sexual assault it can't be proved. Also, the fact that so many people don't even realize they have been assaulted. I'm really glad I found this thread. Well, I was not sexually assaulted, but nearly 2 years ago, I was 17 years old and there was a girl with which I lost my virginity. We were not a couple, instead we were friends, if you know what I mean. So, There was this day, we hang out with some friends and there was a moment where she punched me on my balls as a joke. I get angry, very angry for the incredible pain and with this girl. I mean, WTF. WHO does that as a joke? Well, there was about 30 minutes which I was on constant pain without talking with this girl and without making any eye contact. Finally we got to a coffee with bathrooms, and I wanted to check my DCK, of course. So, I get to the bathroom and without my knowledge this girl gets in with me faster than Flash and locks the door. What happened next? This piece of shit tries to pull down my pants with all her force. I had my belt on, and were pretty tight, so she couldn't pull off my pants, but instead I got horrible scratches on my legs. She started yelling, "Please forgive me, let me heal you." She meant my DCK, obviously. She began to get off my belt and, without thinking, I pushed her to the door. She stopped. There were 20 seconds of silence, and left the bathroom. After that, I did my job on the bathroom and left. The rest of the day was so uncomfortable, and the day next I left her. Worst of all, she lied about us to her friends and 1 week later half the school hated me for things I never did. Crazy bitch, am I right? XD. Sorry for my bad English P. Great question. I know a lot of women online at least that always downplay the fact that men are raped by women, but it definitely happens. I am a woman, but I know a guy that shared his rape story openly. He was friends with a girl, just friends. He was religious, so he was saving himself for marriage to have any sort of sex. This girl decided she wanted to be more than friends. She invited him over for drinking and he had a few and went to sleep at her house. She then proceeded to start giving oral sex to him while he was asleep. He woke up to her doing that and stopped her, but the damage was done. He felt like he was not pure anymore and had not kept his virginity for marriage as he wanted to. He felt violated. He felt raped. Of course he did not report it as nothing would have been done to the girl and it would be his word against hers. And cops don't tend to side with men over women in situations like these. So can we admit that women get away with heinous shit regularly yet? I was 15. It was 1985. She was a teacher's assistant at one of the middle schools. She also lived across the street. I still have trouble with the assault part. I walked over there virtually every day for 6 months to get assaulted. Edit. She was 38. The conflict there is very real. As men, we're told that the ability to attain sexual attention from women is a pretty good indication of our value. When I was 20, I was sleeping with a 34-year-old. I'd have told you I was killing it. That relationship looks much different from the other side of 35. And when I was 30, I definitely wasn't trying to get with 20-year-olds. This thread is basically double standards. Electric Boogaloo. I was 13. She attacked me while I was playing video games on the couch. I was over visiting her sons since we hung out, but they weren't there that day. When I resisted, she pulled a knife into my crotch and threatened to tell my mom I was peeping on her changing clothes. She proceeded to rape me and that was it. It was more times, but these two were the worst. 7th grade, so we were sleeping at school and teacher was in different room, so one girl decided she wanted to know what will happen if she will try to sit on someone's face with her PSSY and not let go. Well, she did it to me. What happened to her? Social boost because class found it funny and I was weird because I didn't find it enjoyable. Next time, I was in different school. Parents divorced, and we had some event at school where we would sell some things. Well, some 2 girls, who tried to drug me. They were about 2-4 years older, and BTW drugs really aren't rare in my town. If you'll ask someone for pen here, there's bigger chance he'll have drugs with himself than pen. Also, when I was 4, my about 14-17-year-old step-cousin made me hear her PSSY. Throwing my basic story in to piss off all the people downvoting the thread. Simple story. Freshman in college. Girl that was interested in me that I wasn't interested in. Have rebuffed her approaches many times in the past. I was very sick one night, on a strong antihistamine. They, her and another friend, kept bothering me to go with them to her party. I conceded. I drink 1 beer, and get smashed. I don't know if it was the sickness, the medicine, or if I was drugged. The next thing I realize I am in a corner making out